Hey, it's Scott Bischoff coming to you for Detroit Lions podcast. A little chilly. And the zipper is not working. Coming off a big win last week against the Packers, and it's wonderful to see Aaron Rodgers struggle so much with that concept. As an aside. We're going to break down the Week 10 Lions game on the road against Chicago. We're going to go a little deeper into some stats, into what I think they're doing with Justin Fields. Again, we were positive. We came at last week's game from a positive standpoint, and look where it got. We got to win. It's beautiful. And the whole draft stuff, yes, it's draft season, but let's win games. Coming at you guys right now is the Week 10 Lions preview. Okay, so coming off what was a pretty electric defensive performance against the Packers, say what you want about Rodgers, he kind of sucked. I think it's almost like he's washed, but there were multiple throws that he made in that game that I shook my head at, like, what's happening? Regardless, we're happy to see them beat the Packers. And it's too early. I know it's draft season because it's always draft season, but it's too early to be worrying about their draft position. It's gonna end up whatever it is. I've been like doing draft stuff shit for a long time, and it is the most futile. It's wasting your time and energy worrying about all that stuff. Now, having said that, in about 8 weeks or 7 weeks, maybe you guys can point me back to what I just said when I'm fretting about where they are in the order of the draft, because I will be. So maybe perhaps don't listen to me when I'm saying this stuff, because I'm going to contradict myself in the future. And I know I will, but it is what it is. Okay. So we're gonna do our normal dive into the stats and the game and the numbers and all that stuff, and then we're gonna take a deeper dive into Justin Fields to see kind of what I think they're doing with him and why it's so problematic for a defense. So the game total here, and remember, this is recorded on Thursday, so this stuff is subject to change based on injuries and all the stuff. So the game total is 48.5 points. Chicago's a 2.5-point favorite at home. Generally speaking, the prevailing theory is that a home team that gives them a 3-point edge. So that 2.5-point total is kind of telling you that the numbers sort of believe that the Lions beat Chicago, just over 50% of the time, playing on a neutral field, for whatever that's worth. Implied total, Chicago's at 25.5 and Detroit's at 23. Okay, so getting to where these teams are on offense. Running the ball on offense, the Lions are averaging 5.0 yards per carry, which is tied for 7th in the NFL. Chicago's averaging 5.4 yards per carry, which is number 2 in the NFL, but we need to consider that Justin Fields doing damage the way he has, specifically the last 4 weeks, and we'll get into more of that. That's known as a tease in the business. Sorry. I've always wanted to say that. And now I said it and I feel stupid. Let me compose myself. Yes, so 5.4 yards per carry for Chicago. That's second in the NFL. Rushing touchdown totals. Detroit has 9, which is tied for 13th. Chicago has 10, which is tied for 5th in the NFL. Now, passing. Detroit averages 7.4 yards per attempt, which is tied for 10th. And Chicago's averaging 7.1, which is 13th in the NFL. Passing touchdown totals. Detroit has 14, which is tied for 9th. Chicago has 10, which is tied for 18th. On defense, the Lions rushing defense, they're surrendering 5.0 yards per carry, which is 28th in the NFL. Chicago's surrendering 4.8 yards per carry, which is tied for 24th. The Lions have given up 13 rushing touchdowns, which is 31st in the NFL. Chicago's given up 15, which is last in the NFL. So you can see where, there's going to be some rushing touchdowns scored in this game, according to the numbers. The passing defense, the Lions are allowing 7.8 yards per attempt, which is worst in the NFL. Chicago's allowing 7.2, which is 27th in the NFL. Passing touchdowns total. The Lions have given up 13, which is tied for 20th, and the Bears have given up 10, which is tied for 9th. Now to an area where there's a huge gap, and it's an interesting gap. Okay, so the Lions have generated 12 sacks on defense, which is tied for 30th. Chicago has generated 13th, which is 29th. Okay, 13 sacks for Chicago, 29th in the NFL. Here's the chasm. Detroit has surrendered on offense. They've surrendered 13 sacks, which is really good. It's 4th in the NFL, 4th best. Chicago has surrendered 33 sacks, which is 31st in the NFL. It's a huge, huge gap. So you can see an opportunity for the Lions, but inside that opportunity is very much danger, and we'll talk about that. Interceptions. On defense, the Lions have registered 5 interceptions, which is tied for 21st. Obviously, they had a bunch last week against Aaron Rodgers. Chicago has 9, which is tied for 5th. So Chicago is doing a good job of getting turnovers on defense. Detroit has thrown 7 interceptions, which is tied for 20th. And Chicago's thrown 6, which is tied for 10th. Okay, so doing all that and thinking about what Justin Fields has done the last couple weeks, because he's generating a ton of production as a runner, I wanted to look back at, when did this start? What's the trend? What's happening here? So I looked at it in 4-game segments, and there is a clear jumping off point for what Justin Fields is doing. He is not an effective passer at this point. The numbers bear that out. So we'll just get into it. So, in weeks 2 to 5, I'm looking at this in 4-week segments. So in weeks 2 to 5, Justin Fields averaged 10 completions on 18 attempts for 140 yards. That's it. He threw for 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions total in that 4-week span. He ran the ball an average of 8 attempts for 42 yards in that span, okay? And he had 1 rushing touchdown total in that 4-week span. So we're not looking at a player who's doing tons of damage running the ball, but enough to be, something that you got to pay attention to. Interestingly, over that span, the Bears averaged 31 rushing attempts for 172 yards, which is about 5.5 yards a carry. So, doing a good job running the ball. Obviously buoyed a little bit by what Justin Fields is doing. Now let's move forward to weeks 6 and 9, where there is a clear difference. Passing, it's still not good. It is what it is, but on average, these are the averages for the latest 4-week span. He's 15 of 25 for 161 yards. He has thrown 7 total touchdowns in those 4 games and 2 interceptions. Okay, he had 3 interceptions the previous 4-week span. So again, this latest 4-week span, 15 of 25 on average for 161 yards, 7 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Rushing, this is where it goes, it's off the rails. And this is the problem for the entire, everything we're going to talk about is this. He's averaging 12.25 carries per week for over 102 yards on average rushing per week. And he's got 3 total touchdowns over that span. Interestingly, and it doesn't mean all that much, Chicago's gone from 31 carries a week to just over 31 carries a week to just over 39 carries a week, and in the previous 4 weeks that they were averaging 5.5 carries or 5.5 yards per carry. Right now it's 5.9, a little over 5.9 in this 4-week span. So I did this for Goff too, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you are seeing in weeks 2 to 5, Justin Fields being somewhat limited as a passer and not being all that effective as a runner either. Somewhat, but nothing crazy. And then you look at the last 4 weeks, and I know that he had the huge week last week, but even if we just break it down game by game, in week 6 he had 88 yards on 12 carries. In week 7 he had 82 yards on 14 carries. In week 8 he had 8 carries for 60 yards. Last week he had 15 for 178 yards. So you can see there is the Bears have recognized that getting him involved running the ball is really the ticket to getting him productive. It is a huge problem for specifically the Lions defense in this matchup. Let's back up just a second. I'll tell you what Goff has done and the Lions running game has done over the last 4 weeks, because it is not the Lions are in trouble on offense. They are not running the ball well. Goff is not playing well, and he's not. Let me rephrase. Goff is playing fine. He's not a difference maker right now. He has. So the Lions had the bye in week 6. So we're talking in weeks 7, 8, and 9. Goff averages 21. His average is 21 for 30. He's averaging 1 touchdown and 1 interception in each of those 3 games. Okay, he has 3 total passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions in that 3-week span. Now the Lions' rush offense. I know I told you earlier that they're averaging 5 yards a carry overall. Where did my papers go? Yes, the Lions are tied for 7th in the NFL overall, averaging 5 yards a carry. But if we just break it down into what's happened after the bye, the Lions are averaging 25 carries for 105.3 yards, which is 4.2 yards per carry. They've had 2 total rushing touchdowns in that 3-week span. So we're seeing a little bit of a depressed running game. It's not as potent as it was to start the season, and we're looking at a 3-game stretch. So it's not just a 1-game anomaly. It's the Lions are not running the ball effectively as they were, and Goff has just been very, very average. So that's where the Lions are on offense. The Lions defense looked a lot better last week, but it's 1 game against what looked like a very disinterested. I don't even know how to describe what happened with that. Okay, so let's get into. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm gonna bounce all over the place just because it's. I suppose I need to write my thoughts down and then go by point, but I'm not going to do that. So, Fields running the ball is as problematic for a defense as it's a huge problem. It just is. So, in a perfect world, you would play the game and put Fields in a situation where he couldn't leave the pocket and force him to beat you as a passer. And if you can do that, he will not do that. He is not. I do not believe where he is as a player right now that he can sit back, even if you give him a little bit of time. I don't know that he is a player that I would say if you give him time in the pocket, he will pick you apart on defense. I don't think that's what Fields is right now, and I think the numbers bear that out. So, again, in a perfect world, can you do that? Are you able to prevent him from leaving the pocket and generating yards running the ball? I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think one of the things that's absolutely happened is that in this last group of games, the Bears have understood that they need to give Fields some designed runs. I think it's easy to see that there are designed runs happening where the play is not intended for him to pass at all. Those are hard to defend. They just are. So then you get into the concept of how do you defend, how can you defend that? And one of the ways you do that is with a spy on defense, and generally that would be like, a linebacker kind of a player, but Fields is so fast, and if he makes the spy miss, and it's the spy's job to spy the quarterback, he's into open areas where he's just going to run away from people, and it's super dangerous. Do the Lions have a player on staff right now who can run with Fields, but also be disciplined enough not to get themselves out of position and into having to take bad angles to Fields? And I'm worried about it. I'm legit worried that Fields is going to bust off a couple of big runs. They're going to design runs for him. He's going to run the ball 10 plus times. We've seen their offense be a very different offense in the last 4 weeks as opposed to the previous 4. We just have. So I wouldn't expect them to do anything different. The other thing that you can do if you are spying or not spying, whatever it is, you're going to ask your defensive, your edge player specifically, to play more of a contain game and ask them to not get up the field or widen so much to give him running lanes. So don't expect Aiden Hutchinson and Pascal and Charles Harris and whoever else is rushing the passer. I wouldn't expect them to be super productive in this game, so don't be frustrated or questioning, where are these guys? Why are they not getting home? Kind of, one of the ways that you can contain and prevent big plays from a running quarterback is to kind of hang around the perimeter, not widen, not get too far up the field, and just slowly squeeze him, right? So that would be what I would expect the Lions' defensive line to do. I would imagine they'll do a bunch of different things. They'll throw blitzes in here and there. They may stunt some stuff, trying to catch him, on these design runs kind of stuff. But in the end, it's do you have a spy for him? The answer is probably no. As hard as it is to say that, Justin Fields is really quick. He's very fast. So if the Bears are doing a lot of the design runs, they're running plays to get him to the edge of the defense and get him running into space. That's problematic. So the Lions are going to have to run to the ball. They're all going to have to pursue. They're going to have to take good angles. Great effort this week. I don't expect it will. I expect that will happen. It's just, in a perfect world, can Malcolm Rodriguez spy Fields? I don't know that I'd ask Derek Barnes to do it. Can it be a smaller defensive back who does? I don't know. But in theory, you would have a spy in some situations. In theory, you're doing a lot of contain. You wanna prevent him from just running loose. We saw it last week. He had 15 carries for 178 yards and the long touchdown, and it's just like, what do you do? So you do your best to prevent all that stuff, and as easy as it is to say, let's prevent it, it's really hard to do it. It just is. So I would expect a little bit of frustration during this game, that not only are they not pressuring him, but then they're allowing him to escape and get into the secondary and run. And it's like, okay, that's what he is. That's what he's doing. That's where he's been super effective the last 4 weeks. I'm not trying to paint or portray a negative perspective on what the Lions defense is going to do this week or where they're at. It's just, what are you going to do? He's fast. He's very effective as a runner. They have unlocked that part of his game in the last 4 weeks, and they've really made him just a massive weapon for their offense. In a perfect world, can you stop that? Can you limit that? Yeah, you want to, but good luck. Okay, so that's the Bears on offense. There's more. It's interesting as Fields has emerged as more of the runner. It looks like Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery have taken a step back as far as not necessarily being involved, because they're still running the ball a lot, like a lot. They're averaging, almost 40 carries a game. But it's Fields who's really doing the damage. So, but again, Herbert's a really good running back. David Montgomery's a really good running back. These guys are very capable, and it's obvious that they want to run the ball more than throw the ball. So it's going to be a matter of what are the Lions able to do? Are they able to put the Bears into situations where they have to throw, or can the Bears then design things around that and run in situations and just keep on, picking off first downs? And I guess I'm worried about, as a summary, I'm worried about Fields running the ball, both as a scrambler and in their designed running game, because they're doing it a lot more now than they were even 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. So I don't think. The addition of Chase Claypool is an interesting addition. Cole Kmet's a reasonable option as a tight end. He scored a couple times last week. They have interesting players. They're not effective throwing the ball. Darnell Mooney's a good receiver, but I think he's more of a number 2. Claypool is more of a contested catch down the field player. I'm not sure Fields is really going to give him a lot of opportunities right now. Now, I'm not saying that Fields isn't going to throw the ball to him, running verticals. If he's running past the defense, that's fine. He will. But, I think if you play a safety over the top of Claypool, you can limit it. You can limit what he does, and then it's just a matter of it's very vanilla what they do on offense as far as throwing the ball. And they've ticked it up a little bit over the last 4 games, but they're still not, they're averaging 161 yards passing a week. So it's just, he's been opportunistic as a passer in the last 4 games. He's got 7 total touchdowns. Fields is playing better, but it's a bit of a mirage because he's doing it all running. His production is mainly coming from running the ball. And as sometimes we have to separate out the fantasy production from the actual production of a player. As a fantasy player, Justin Fields has been electric the last 4 weeks. It's been ridiculous. But as a passer, it's still kind of the same as it was. There's still not a lot to be seen there. It's okay. So the Lions are going to have a tough task, and I'm going to be actually in Chicago to see this. So I'm really curious to see what they do on defense and how they try to prevent Fields from gashing them running the ball. I'll report back. But so we know what the problems are for the Lions on defense, and it's simply about containing Fields. There's a bunch of ways to try to do that, but in the end, it's containing, not getting. It's being super disciplined as far as their defensive line goes, and not getting out of their rush lanes, and not widening, and not getting too far up the field. Even if an offensive lineman gives it to you, like Hutchinson lines up over the right tackle, and the tackle wants him, and just sort of gives him the edge. Hutchinson has to recognize there's a reason for that, and he needs to slow down and not necessarily take the bait there. So the Lions' defense, their front four and their linebackers are going to have to play a very, very disciplined football game. We'll see what happens. I don't think that they're going to do a great job of limiting Fields. I think we can see, like if you look at Jalen Hurts in Week 1, you can see, if you remember back to Week 1, you can see how the pass rush got there, but just couldn't finish Hurts, and then he was off and running, and that's problematic. So hopefully they've learned, and there'll be a little bit less of that. But I think there's legit reason to be very fearful of what Fields can do as a runner, and to try to make him beat you as a passer. So that's what that's where the Bears offense, Lions defense is. Now the Lions on offense, like I mentioned, they just have been a little they've been a little less explosive. Maybe this is the loss of, I mean, obviously, we should expect that they've lost a lot of key players. Injuries have been a huge problem. DeAndre Swift, I mean, you can see it last week. He comes in and he scores. He's super explosive catching the ball, but he's just not effective running it, and he's banged up. It limits what they can do on offense, and Goff to me has taken a step back to kind of what my fears about him are, and that's he's just very meh. And he has been. He's looked out of sorts. I want to say, let me look, but I think the Dallas game was part of that. Yeah, Dallas, Miami, and Green Bay. So Dallas you can understand because of the pressure they bring, and fine. I think he played horribly against Dallas. He played scared. He would not step up into the pocket even if it was there for him. He wanted to go out the back door, and leaving the back door is a horrible idea. It changes the angles in which the offensive tackles have to block. Meaning, if a quarterback's landmark is, say, 9-10 yards deep, and he's now 13-14 yards deep, bailing, it's really hard to block at those angles for the offensive tackles. It's super hard to do. You can see Patrick Mahomes get his tackles into trouble all the time because it's kind of what he has done. And I think it's one of the reasons they moved on from Tyreek Hill is because they want him more inside the structure. I don't know why I'm talking about Mahomes. Whatever. So Goff has played. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been good either. And you can explain some of it, injuries. You can explain it. They're lacking weapons and all the stuff. But they need him to play better. There's an opportunity this week for the Lions to establish the running game again because the Bears are just not good defending the run. Neither team's good in this game defending the run, and this is kind of like you have the worst run defense giving up touchdowns against the second worst run defense giving up touchdowns. I would expect we see some rushing touchdowns. It's sometimes these games don't go to plan, and the passing games are going to get involved here too, but. This is an opportunity for the Lions to reestablish the ground game and to do it with power. It does feel like, and we've talked about this weekly, that one of the ways to prevent the opposing offense from scoring a lot is to reduce the amount of possessions that you give them. And I feel like I don't worry so much about the passing game for the Bears, but I do think that it might be a good idea to limit, in some ways, giving Chicago offensive possessions just because you're worried so much about about the quarterback running. So the best way to do that is just to run the ball, take time off the clock, and sort of control. We're going to dictate the terms of how this game is going to be played. The Lions' offensive line is fully capable of doing that against this defensive line. The Bears traded Roquan Smith, so I would imagine the run defense will suffer from that trade. It's a bad run defense already. I think that they're allowing 4.8 yards a carry. The Lions are allowing 5. It would be great for the Lions to get back on track, running the ball and just pounding it down the Bears' throats. Just kind of. You can't stop us from running the ball, and we're just going to continue to. And then running play action stuff off of that. Again, I think the strength of where the Lions' offense is in running the ball and play action, the short passing game. A lot of the stuff that we've seen to Amon-Ra St. Brown, still, that's kind of what we should expect to see. There's no reason to think that the Lions can't put themselves in a position to score points in this game. They should. This game has sneaky over potential. It's going to be cold, so Jared Goff will fumble the ball. If it's cold and windy, that's a problem for Goff. Specifically because he's not going to run like Fields is, so that gives Chicago an advantage. So it's something to pay attention to. But this game does have sneaky over potential just because both teams are not great on defense. And, you can see, like last week, Miami and the Bears went bananas scoring points. The Lions have done this against teams that have scored a bunch of points on them, specifically when those teams don't have great defenses. Philly in week 1, Seattle, teams that the quarterback can run and give the Lions defense fits. The Lions have to stay in these games and play at a pace. And they can do this running the ball. They can run it effectively enough to score enough points to stay in these games. So that's kind of where it is. I would love to see Jared Goff play I would love to see him win a game for the Lions. Like, be the reason why they win a game, or be the reason why they continue to string first downs. Hang in the pocket and make good throws. I'm not asking him to get obliterated to make throws, but when you can step up into the pocket, do that, and give your receivers a little more time to get open, and get the ball there on time. I would expect Amon-Ra St. Brown to have a big game this week. A bunch of catches, so 7, 8, 9 catches kind of thing. Interestingly, the trade of T.J. Hockenson, whether we like it or don't like it, it's totally understandable why they did do it. We talked about that last week. He had a nice first game with Minnesota. It's going to be tough. The Lions didn't use Hockenson the way that Minnesota did. So you saw last week between Brock Wright, who was pretty much responsible for a lot of blocking, and the rookie who caught the touchdown pass. He looks really good. He looked really good on what I saw of him coming out of Virginia Tech. I thought he looked. I don't think he's a guy who's going to run away from a defense, but he didn't look all that limited as a big player. If you put him on a linebacker and you run like crossers and slants and that kind of stuff, he's perfectly capable of running away from the linebackers. He did that. He's a good route runner. I think that he can fine tune some of that stuff, but you are looking at a scenario where he's good enough as a pass catcher that maybe he absorbs and mitigates the loss of Hockenson to where it's not as painful. But I think in the end, Hockenson has a chance to put up good numbers in the Minnesota offense. But we're going to be happy when it comes to the draft and when you're able to pick off a pretty solid player, hopefully a player that emerges for you, while giving Mitchell the lion's share, so to speak, of the tight end volume going forward. The loss of DJ Chark is still, I think long term, it's a huge loss. Just because if it is the same ankle, and it is, what's his health going to be going forward? I don't know. That's tough. So, I don't know where Josh Reynolds is this week. We'll have to pay attention to the injury report. He had a little back injury pop up last week. He's an important player for them right now because they don't have a lot of depth in the passing game. So as I'm sitting here saying I want Goff to step up and be one of the reasons why they win games, I fully understand that the Lions are limited in with their weapons, but there's no reason for him not to be able to make plays inside the structure of their offense. I'm not asking him to be that guy because he's just not. He's it's one of the great things about looking at college quarterbacks right now is the players who can create plays outside the structure of an offense and make things happen when stuff breaks down, which it does all the time. Those guys it's fun to watch them, but finding that guy going forward is going to be huge for the Lions because it would be think about the Lions offense, and when pressure gets home and Goff is either in the pocket or even running, there's really not a lot happening there. It's either he's getting sacked, he's running out of bounds, or he's throwing the ball out of bounds. There's really not a lot of outside the structure stuff happening where you could feel good about, all right, he's going to take off and run, and either he's going to keep his eyes, and this is the perfect scenario, is he keeps his eyes down the field because he still wants to throw, or he's running with the ball to generate first downs. That's just not Goff's game. So, it would be great to see him make plays inside the structure of their offense and extend plays by stepping up into the pocket. We'll see what kind of pressure the Bears are going to bring. But I think it's all there for them. Obviously, first and foremost, it's running the ball and getting back to running the ball super effectively, and then running play action and some other, offensive concepts around that. But it's first and foremost getting back to, 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 3 consistently, because they're able to run the ball. The Lions they've looked a little. They just haven't run the ball as effectively the last couple weeks. So, as a summary for this whole thing, we've gone long. This is going to come down to what the Lions can do to prevent Fields from creating big plays using his feet. I hope the Lions have a plan for this. I'm sure they're not going to go into this week without a plan. It's just, how does it work? And then on offense, it's, everything should open up for Detroit to be able to do the things that they want to do, which is first and foremost running the ball effectively, getting into good down and distance, and running play action stuff. Now, something to talk about with play action, and then we'll go. Play action has nothing to do with you can run a play on first down and lose 3 or 4 yards running the ball. And then you can run a play action pass the very next play, and it doesn't matter that you lost 3 or 4 yards the play before. What matters is whether you sold the play action to the defense and whether you sold it well enough to get them out of position to then throw behind them. So it doesn't necessarily matter, in a big picture, it's not all that relevant how effective you are running the ball. It matters what the action looks like and what it forces the second level players to do, which opens up throwing lanes, between the safeties and the linebackers, kind of things, crossers, drags, that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I would hope the Lions get at, is they run the ball and then they're a little conservative with the way they play on offense, and it's just a short passing game where it's just consistently putting stacking a first down on top of a first down, and, moving the ball down the field pretty easily. So that's the hope. There's no reason to think that the Lions can't do this. It'll be a very interesting game because it's going to be in some weather. It's at Soldier Field. It's going to be cold. It's going to be in the mid-30s there. I don't know what the wind is like. I'm hoping it's not windy because I don't want to be super cold watching the game. I know, it's terrible. I'm complaining about being able to travel and see a Lions game on the road. So I am excited to see what their defense looks like. Maybe more so than anything. Obviously, watching offensive line play is something that I'm super interested to see what that looks like. But the Lions can and will do a good job of moving bodies. It's just, let's see how explosive their running game is and what that means for the big picture on Sunday. But it's a tough task this week. There's no denying that it's going to be a challenge to meet, limiting Fields, the things that he does well, and then responding to that with what they can do on offense. So that's kind of the breakdown for this week. Everybody have a great weekend. Let's enjoy, hopefully, another win. A road win will be a big win. I think it's, toss a coin and we'll see what happens. We'll be back next week, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks.